Now to some function which is new in PuttLab 7 as compared to PuttLab 6. We have, first of all, a couple of different functions inside of the settings. I just want to highlight some small things which might be of interest for you. For example, we now have the chance to change the units between European and US style or metric and imperial. So if you want to see your data now in inch and feet, you can just switch it. So there is still one parameter left, which is in millimeters, which is the impact spot, because we are not sure if 0.1 millimeter could be somewhere displayed in inches, because it would be a very complicated number in inches. So we just left it in millimeters for impact spot, but anything else, even speed is now in miles per hour, can be just switched easily in the setup. And there's another option, which is here. You can also now select if you want to see a silver blade in the data, or if you see a black blade in the data. We might come up with mallets in the future where you can also select a mallet in the future. So now here, for example, if we select the black blade, you now see this black blade putter in all the reporting. These are kind of minor options which extend the functionality of PuttLab 7 against 6, which are not too deep into functionality of the reports or the data analysis. But let's talk a little bit about the reporting, because we have made some considerable changes in the reporting to improve the content and the information which is provided. So let's go to the extended report first and just look at phase rotation. And you might know from the past that we did not show rotation in the backswing, and we did also not show what you will see later, how the speed and the acceleration develop from backswing into forward swing. Now for phase rotation and for phase angle, we decided to add the curves on backswing also. This might not be too relevant in a case where inside of the backswing just nothing is happening. So this starts at being square. This data set, I think this is Paul Asinger. Paul Asinger starts at the 0 line, which means he starts with a square angle, and then top of backswing, his phase would be 4.2 degrees open, and then closing to backswing at impact 0.2 open, and then in the end 6.5 closed, and then very smooth phase rotation in the backswing, and then very smooth phase rotation in the forward swing with a little bit of a speeding up to impact, a little bit more aggressive to impact for Paul Asinger. Now, where would we see differences? Let me just pop up an amateur, the 25 handicapper, and we open up the same report. And now looking at phase rotation. Now what you see here now in the phase rotation curve is, for example, for the blue line. So the blue line is the first putt, and the first putt was already aimed way to the right. And this is the reason why it stays way to the right throughout impact. There's a little bit of a correction to impact, so it's more grouped around impact. But if you just would see from top of backswing, you wouldn't see where it started. So the problem for this misaimed putter at impact, which is the blue one, is not coming from the backswing, it's coming from aim. So you can now identify where a misaimed putter comes from. Does it come from some problems of irregular opening or not consistently opening the face in the backswing, or is it already a problem with aim? So you see most of the misaims you see at impact for this student already started with aim. And it was very difficult to see that before. So this, I think, helps a lot to also then see the development of aim angles into top of backswing and then into impact much more clearly. This data is synchronized to top of impact. So top of impact is 0. So the time in the backswing varies a little bit, so they don't start at the same point in time because the backswing time varies. But for educational purpose, to synchronize everything for the downswing, we have now adjusted the time scale to top of backswing. So top of backswing is where all the curves are synchronized, that at top of backswing they have exactly the same time. Now looking at the face rotation rate, and then you see that, as I said before, there is nothing really wrong with rate of rotation in the backswing, but there is something wrong with rate of rotation in the forward swing to impact. Now, as this golfer is misaiming and then opens this blue putt way too much, at this point at top of backswing, he is still following his normal pattern, which is more or less neutral, but now the face is way too much open, the blue one. So he needs now to get this face squaring up to impact, and so subconsciously he seems to recognize that the face is too much open, so the blue line is closing much more to impact as compared to these others up here. So you can clearly see that there is a problem coming from misaiming into the downswing, and just before impact he starts to compensate, but actually the compensation is also not consistent. So this really helps you to more clearly understand the pattern, where it's coming from, and the compensations and the inconsistencies where they come from. So other data is just the same on this page, but we offered now you the chance to also look at the backswing with regards to face rotation. I think this is not too complicated. Are there any questions on that? As I said.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, sure, please.
Is there any way to look at the blue line rate of rotation on the wave by itself?
Well, sure, if you go to single.
There you go, a little click up at the top. Love that, fantastic, thank you.
So all or single. With single, you can just go through the single ones. So just in general, if we look at all the putts, this is more looking at your, what we would say, pattern. So this means I see basically what you do, but I also see where you are more consistent or where you are less consistent. So I would see, well, for example, in aim, this is not consistent, but the backswing is rather consistent because it's all in parallel. Now here with rotation rate and impact, it's not. This wouldn't be identifiable if you just look at one putt. But if you want to know more about, okay, what is actually specific for these single putts, you go to single putt, and then you can just scroll through these single putts to find out actually what the differences are. So for single putt, you certainly don't see consistency because it's only one putt, but you still see the score for single putts also.